Let's thank Anna and Veronica for joining us today. And let's start with the presentation. Yes, could you please show the screen with the presentation? Good morning, colleagues. Our today's presentation has the following topic: one line, millions of people, and we have invented the topic of narrative responsibility in a public system together with Veronica. Today we'll talk about the cases based in Russia and the narrative responsibility. I'm Anna Parshina. I'm the managing partner at UpScale11 consulting company. There we stand for the new approaches for the organizational work. For 25 years, I've been working with companies that genuinely want to create or to rebuild the culture, the language, and the image of the future. I work with various organizations, with holdings, and I'd like to share a short story with you. 13 years ago, I was the first director responsible for the happiness of employees in the Enter company that was established by Maxim Nogutkov. It seems like the notion and the position name is very simple, but it's about creating a story for the workers, and the culture that we created was very close to the professional happiness. So, Veronica, I give you the floor. Thank you, Anna. Hello, everyone. I'm very happy to participate in this event. It's always hard to speak on behalf of the service, but it's always easy to speak about separate projects. For example, there is a certain project or certain idea. So today, I hope that I won't see any fear from you because I represent the taxation service. I'll tell you about how we look for meanings. I'm the head of the part of the work of the Federal Tax Service of Russia. Also, I'm the head of the Leaders of Russia, advisor to the head of the Leaders of Russia competition. And I do HR work not for the sake of HR. HR is the tool for expressing the meaning. It enables us to effectively work with the employees. And it makes the life of citizens better. So I'll talk about the public services. So this is the ambitious agenda that I've got in my career. So together with Veronica, we're going to talk about the topic that seems as if it were of the very humanistic nature, but actually it has the practical application. Today, it only makes sense to talk not about how the brand stories should be created, but also how to tell the story. And we would like to focus today on what happens when an interface or a phrasing or one line in a message impacts not on the perception of the brand, but on the trust of people. Today we speak together, and I'll explain why. It is based on the case that happened to us last year, and I'll explain why this topic is important to us. And Veronica will tell you how it looks like within one big system. Mistakes have a very high price. So what is narrative responsibility? For us, narrative responsibility is what experience a system creates through its wording, interfaces, and management decisions. In other words, it's not just about finding the right words, but also answering very simple questions. Sometimes it's very hard to find these answers to the questions. So, for example, what the system says, how it says it, where a real person encounters it all, including the client, the partner, and whether this all matches with the actual action. If an email is written in such a manner that after receiving it, a person doesn't know what to do with it, means that the text is not successful. if there are barriers for using a certain interface, it's not just the interface problem. It means that there's a problem with the product. If a CEO is saying nice words, but the life is completely different from that, it means that there are issues with the quality of the management. And the narrative director, the narrative officer role is becoming more and more important, because it's not only a this is not only a person who is responsible for the beautiful and transparent story that this business creates. It also is a team that is connected with the messages, with the language and the experience of a client, an employee, or a partner. This topic has become important to me back in 2013 when I worked in the company called Sber Bank. Today it's called Sber. I was responsible for the internal communications and corporate culture. One of my responsibility or duty included sending out messages to the employees called Good Morning Sberbank. And this was a very short, motivational morning later. At that point of time, we had 350,000 workers in all regions and countries. So a lot of people needed to agree upon the text of this message, starting from the client and ending with the vice president, who was my direct manager. And on the daily basis, from the morning to the evening, we had to rewrite this morning message. And once I became outraged and I just said, this is just an email. And Natalia Vladimirovna told me that one word can impact 300,000 people in a positive or negative way. It can create something good and it can destroy. And it seemed to me that it was such a beautiful metaphor, but today it's no longer a metaphor for me. We're responsible for the stories and words that we choose. It's especially important when we impact not only our workers, our employees, but the people around you, including clients and partners. If we speak about the DNA of large systems, where are the challenges and how it works? Large systems are complicated and complex, not because they are systems, but because they include a lot of local stories, professional habits, the language, traditions, customs, the understandings of what is norm and what is considered to be right. In this system, it seems to be very easy to create a framework from above, but it doesn't work this way. Each region, each city, each settlement has its own DNA, and if workers don't find anything that resonates with them in the story, whatever story you come up with, it will remain just as a beautiful motto written out in a manifesto on a page of the presentation, but it will be unfamiliar to people. That is why the case of the Federal Taxation Service that we had last year became very interesting to us. It was not only about 115,000 employees. Yes, it was a very complicated structure. It was the public service. It was the high level of responsibility and intellectual responsibility. And the digital transformation that the service underwent for the benefit of the whole country is an interesting case. In such a huge system, words very easily lose their meaning because the intellectual level of the employees is very high. And if you just write these words on the very clearly what the narrative works, what the story works, and when it doesn't, because this whole system will scream it to you very loudly, because it will see immediately where the story is true, where it resonates, and where it's supported by people, and where it's not. When we were just starting our work on this case, at that point of time, I already had the thank you methodology ready. I'll briefly explain this. I accumulated this experience based on my work with other companies, and I think that we were able to identify the correct meanings for the federal taxation service as well. Thank you methodology enables you to recollect, restructure the corporate culture of the company. This is the backronym, and thank you for telling me what it's called. So it's about behavior, artifacts, system, indicators, proximity, and operationalization. I'm not going to go into all the steps, but I will briefly outline the four major steps that are needed when you create meaning for a big company, for a big system. To cut the long story short, the logic is this. You don't need to invent, to make up meanings. You need to listen to them. You need to listen to the conversations, to the phrasing that the workers, the employees, and the employer uses. You need to look for the contradictions, tensions, and the intonation. It seems like a very simple semantic analysis that an AI can do for you, but if you don't have such a story, if you look at what can you find on the internet portal and Telegram channels, it is very hard to find these words that repeat. So it is the most difficult, complicated step of this work. You need to identify the patterns, the sequences, commonalities that may reflect the real DNA of the company. So step two is to collect not the abstract values, and I'm sure all of you know that Russian and international companies have a lot of values, and they often include teamwork, openness, innovation, innovative work. So the values seem to be very similar. 70% of companies focus on that. So it's not surprising that it remains to be just a beautiful wrapping. These are not living meanings. They don't resonate with people, whether they are in Rupinsk, Khabarovsk, or another city. So we need to look out for the meanings. They may be formulated in some weird words, but you need to look out for these words that identify what people, to determine what people mean when they speak about the predictability, the safety, the security. So we are doing a lot of work, and this is 90% of work. So you need to find these meanings that are on the fingertips, on the tip of your tongue. But later you translate it into the artifacts, into the system that will speak about these meanings, that will tell the stories and support the correct behavior, create the artifacts that you'll be able to see, that you will want to attach to your computer, to wear. And step four is to check whether you hallucinated at all, whether it was a fantasy of yours or not. You need to make sure that these meanings are real. And for that, you need the metrics, the onboarding, the feedback, the repeatability, and embedding to make sure that the results that you've come up with are good and effective. So now I'd like to give the floor to Veronika. She'll go into detail. Well, I would like to mention not only the figures, but also to explain to you how we started to work jointly with Anna and her team. We came up to the conclusion that we don't want to have a Telegram channel, social media for our workers. We couldn't find the contractor to find the solution. As for the public sector, we don't have this section for the payments, these purposes for payments. And What recommendations do they get? Create the network or for your content, create the content plan. When I've heard it for the 9th time in a row, and I clearly understood that it's not something that will be useful for the taxation workers. We have high level of employment. We have a lot of workload. These systems are constantly updating, and we cannot allow ourselves to make a mistake. So our theory was this: we would just create some kind of content, whether it's entertainment content, some memes, some relevant memes. We won't have enough workers to cover this work because the main trait of the federal taxation workers is to have the critical thinking. Without that, you cannot enter this sector of the economy. And I talked with my colleague and I said, we don't like the content then. And my colleague said, let's rely on the meaning then. If we don't translate the meaning itself, our project won't work. And Anna said, you need to rely on the meaning in this case. So, and that's how we understood that this is the team that we want to work with. Anna is someone we want to work with. And Anna mentioned point one. So this is about finding the meanings themselves. We shouldn't just pick any word that won't resonate with the workers. And taxation workers believe in figures. It is their religion. If you don't rely on the fundamental data, objective data, you won't reach anything, any results with the federal taxation workers. When it comes to the loyalty, when it comes to the retention of workers, there's only one metric that gives you positive results. So you will have only 1.3% increase of the loyalty of the taxation of workers if you decrease the workload. If you increase the payment, you will increase the retention only by 11%. But if you increase the reputation, including the reputation of the CEOs that are called in our sphere the managers, you should you have the bullseye. So what is the result of our work? The anchor meanings, namely the narratives that are the bullseye for us. So for example, said, if it's said, it's done. And I'm really grateful for this phrasing that proposed Anna, because some of the phrases we created ourselves, but this one is really brief, but at the same time, it has a lot of meaning. It's about what the citizens of Russia, our clients, tell us. They tell us what to do, and we do it. It's about what we say. If we say something, you do it. If the management says something to the employees do it. So it is the permeating idea, and it's also about a promise that you live up to. The next idea was mastery every day. So it's not enough to undergo training only once. We constantly have the continuous training. Another phrase is one line, millions of people. It's another responsibility, the duties that we have. We are living people, and it's important for us to see not only the machines, not only the figures. So we are more than tax officers, and we are very proud of the quality of our work. And if we provide you the data, there's a high level of probability that this data is the most recent, and we give you the guarantees. So we are digitized by FTS. What examples did we find? There are some large-scale cases, but we just wanted to show you today the cases that would reflect the essence, the meanings. So case one, the self-employed avatar. In Russia, we came up with a special taxation mode called the self-employed status. It enables many people to legalize their businesses, their activities. So we've created a mobile app where you can register just in 30 seconds. We ran the tests. We studied the client's path, the design, and we were confident that we created something really cool. So we launched it into Google Store, App Store, and we received only 3 stars. Can you imagine it? We couldn't believe it. We have invested so much. We've created such a cool product. Why? It was funny. It turns out when you register, the system takes a picture of you, and the majority of clients had the picture where they were blinking. So beautiful ladies didn't like such pictures. So we needed to integrate the feature uh, that enabled the users to change the avatar. So this very simple requirement seemed to be not obvious to us at all at the very beginning because we couldn't understand what the clients didn't like. We thought it was a fundamental mistake, but actually it was enough just to give the users the opportunity to change the avatar. We just needed to listen, to hear our employees, and we're very proud that we were able to hear our employees and to do what needed to be done. So said, done. Case 2 illustrates the inability to collect meanings. You cannot just collect meanings. You cannot just create artifacts. You need to move towards the operations. If you create the meanings, if you hang and attach beautiful posters to the walls, but if you don't integrate these ideas into the documents that are important for the employees, if these ideas haven't become the regulation, part of the regulations and the everyday work of the employees, it will just turn into mottos that are irritating for the employees. So all the narratives, all the major ideas are included into the strategic document. Each deputy director has their own vector of work and they are responsible for it. This document was presented by Mr. Yegorov, our manager, and of the recent, and he presented the work of the recent 10 years, and all the taxation large agencies were presented there. And someone said, someone done. That was the hashtag that we had in the very beginning, but we want to move to the new model. Said, done. So if you didn't do something, you need to find the resources to explain why it wasn't done, and you need to find the solution, what should be done about it. So the next case, one line and millions of people. Here we wanted to focus not only on the experience of the federal taxation body, because we're speaking at the international conference, it's not dedicated to the taxation sphere. So I proposed the following to Anna. Let's talk about the case that has become the legend for the taxation operators. So this is the UK case. Our colleagues in the UK wanted to increase the tax increase the possibilities to collect the taxes, and they tried everything, but only one line helped. This line was suggested by Anna's colleagues, the counselors. At the end of the email, there would be a line. 9 out of 10 of residents of your area have already paid their taxes. And as a result, the recipient of the email wants to be normal. They don't want to be a freak. They want to be part of the society, of the community they live in. So if you want to be part of the community that you respect, with whom you share your life space, you need to pay taxes, just like others do. Just imagine only one line. In just 23 days, gave an increase of £1.6 million in additional revenue to the government. So this is the illustration of how the correct phrasing converts to the tangible results. It is the physical, tangible result of your activity. So this is about how the word is important. And one line, millions of people. This is the deeply permeating system. It's also about the line of code. So if there is a mistake in one line of the code of the app, it will block the personal accounts of multiple of legal persons. People won't be able to do their businesses. So it is very important to pay attention to the words that you use in your communication, but also in the lines of the code based on which you create the products for your clients. Well, that would be all for the cases. So now I'd like to give the floor to my colleague, Anna. Can you hear me? Perfect. So we're wrapping up our today's report and moving on to the key conclusions that we have drawn for ourselves and would like to share them with you. In large systems, language and stories participate in the management process. It's not just an applied discipline. It's not just beautiful mottos. Of course, such mottos don't work. It is just one of the forms through which the system manifests itself as a team. And if you manage to find the meaning that it resonates with people, not because it was imposed from above, then, only then, it will work. Also, meanings become effective only when they are translated into a certain behavior. And it's not an imposed behavior. It is natural, organic behavior. And if you identify these connections between the meanings and between the behaviors, you will achieve the results. And the third aspect is that someone must be accountable for the semantic precision. And this is where the narrative, the chief story officer plays its role. It's not only identifying the meanings and creating the plan, it's also finding this connection between what the system is saying, how it wants to say, and the real experience, the semantic values experience. The narrative responsibility begins where the organization understands words do not accompany the system, they participate in shaping the experience that the system creates. And in conclusion, and in addition to what Veronica was saying, I'd like to talk about the methodology, the thank you methodology. It's about the closeness as well. It's not a separate step that you need to make. It is the motto that you live by. So when you formulate the story for a team, the culture for the team, what is this closeness about? It's the story that's hidden on the tips of your fingers, some minimal amendments. So for example, you don't change the basic values within the team, but very tentatively you add some additions that don't break these values, because people have been abiding by these values, living by them for a very long time. Another aspect is listening on the daily basis. That's how you can accumulate knowledge about other people. That's how you ensure the hereditary processes. Also, you need to connect the values of people with the values of the company. And you don't impose pressure. You take a very thoughtful approach to reach every worker, every employee, and very carefully engage them in the process. And only then the power of the story and the word will work. Thank you. That is all from us. Thank you. Colleagues, thank you very much for such an informative story. I don't know how you managed to cope with the timing. Thank you very much for sharing the contact details. I'm just sending them in the chat, so please ask questions regarding the project. Don't ask the questions regarding the taxation methods. Let's leave that for the other time. Have a personal question. Mark and Soundari in the morning talked about the initiatives related to the story. Sometimes people are skeptical of them. There's also the fight between the departments, like it is my work, it's my duty. But what challenges and difficulties did you run into? What barriers did you see? Well, as for the cases, Anna, I'll tell about the Federal Taxation Service case, and you will add. In the public agencies, there's no money allocated for the HR. We don't have the opportunity to experiment, to select a tool. We cannot just try this tool and then that one. You have only one opportunity, and if you missed, if you make a mistake, you won't have another chance because everyone's busy. So you need to allocate more time to step one. Step one required 2 years for us. We integrated the Institute with anonymous feedback, and we're proving to our employees that you shouldn't be afraid of giving feedback. Tell us it is. And we realized that we managed to do it because we were able to see that people would directly say what they think about the top managers. And the reactions were emotional. Not all of them were positive. So as a result, we realized that it worked. When you start asking questions in such an open environment, you need to be ready and make a list of all the contradictions. So from the very beginning, you start doing a very large-scale research to understand where the barriers and challenges are going to be. So after you eliminate these challenges, you take the risk. Otherwise, you won't have the second chance. I'll take a different viewpoint of the business, and I speak on behalf of the business. I worked a lot on the communication issues with big companies and holdings. And I'm talking about working with multiple teams. And I stand for the stories. You need to engage people. You need to listen to people. They know it all already. But when you come to a certain company, when you approach it, there already is a corporate culture. So you need to understand what good practices already exist and how you can tell about them. Very often, it happens that the system cannot tell about itself well. So the value that you bring is to create a story that will resonate with people, and you do it only by listening to people. And this is an important skill. So the key thing is that the system already has it all, has what it needs. You need to have an interest, take an interest in other people around you and listen to them, because this is the main value. That is how you collect all these gifts that they give you by telling you their stories, and that's how you promote the brand forward and help it move forward. I think Anna is like a fairy, she just told us about how important it is to listen to people, but also this conference, which is of the practical nature. It is important to highlight that to listen means not just to sit and listen to someone. It is a gigantic volume of work. We have studied so many studies and research. We have studied so many feedbacks, and it is not enough. Yes, of course, the system has it all. It's important to listen, but you won't be able to come to the right conclusion just after having one conversation with one person. Yes, this dialogue with the employees and this feedback is the most labor-intensive phase of work. It's true. Right, and when you work in a system that includes 20 people or more, and it seems like it is important to slow down, not to rush into the conversation. You need to have time to listen, to wait, and the world is developing really fast. The pace of life is fast, is fast. So how do you find the forces to slow down? Well, maybe it'll sound as if I were a fairy, but I have accumulated some experience, and I think that when you, uh, as they say, uh, don't um, don't bring your coal to when you come to Newcastle, right? Or a phrase or something like that. So when you are invited as a counselor, you need to forget about your own ego. You don't need to bring your own opinion or the correct framework and say this is how it works. You need to take an opposite approach. Do you need to slow down? No, I don't think it's necessary. What you need is to develop the correct attitude from the very start. And Anna, I'd like to add, what I really like about you is that you are doing very hard work together with your team, but you describe this work in very simple words. And I asked Anna, we have research, but they've become obsolete. They're 3 to 4 years old. And Anna said, no, give me everything. Give me all the information that you've got. So what am I trying to say here, Tom? So when you find the correct narratives that resonate with all people, you immediately see the feedback. And these narratives are not easy to change, regardless of the fact whether you invite integrators or not. So when you want to be relevant, you need to speed up, you need to accelerate the pace of work. But if what you're looking for is a deep narrative, in such cases, you need to understand that what was important yesterday or tomorrow will be important tomorrow, or is important today, will remain with you. Thank you. Indeed, there's a comment in the chat that the idea is resonating and is really important. Thank you for a very informative presentation. So if you have the possibility to stay a little bit and answer to the Mikhail's and Alexander's comments, please do. So let's send fires to our speakers to support them. Thank you.